Welcome to this webinar. This is the Yale Global Executive Leadership Program Applications FAQ webinar. My name is Kristen Sorek-West, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Executive Education here at the Yale School of Management. On the call with me today is Joanne Legler, our Executive Education Senior Director of Learning Partnerships, as well as Jamie Willardson, Registrar and Associate Director of Learning Operations. Feel like I should give you all a quiz at the end of this webinar, just to see if you're paying attention, because that's a mouthful. At Executive Education, Joanne is a wonderful advisor, often the first person prospective participants speak with to learn about our programs and understand if they're a good fit. Jamie helps participants prepare for participants to attend programs by sharing important logistical information, providing critical updates, and answering questions about attending a program in general. Joanne and Jamie are intimately familiar with the YGELP application, I can tell you, and they're both here to share with you all of their insights and tips. So today we're here to talk about the Yale Global Executive Leadership Program, or YGELP as we call it for short, and as well as the application process. We'll begin by sharing a brief overview of YGELP as a program. Then we'll move on to reviewing the application process and timeline, as well as the components of the application. Joanne will also share helpful guidance on preparing to attend the program. Before opening the webinar up to questions and sharing final advice, we will review your next steps when it comes to completing and submitting your application. Jamie and I will be moderating the chat and Q&A. We do have time reserved at the end to answer any outstanding questions, but we're going to do our best to answer incoming questions as they come up. So a few housekeeping items before I pass the mic over to Joanne. We encourage you, like I said, to use both the chat and the Q&A throughout the webinar. We're watching both. And we're here to answer your questions, so please submit them. This is your time to get your questions answered. And I assure you, if you have a question, someone else likely has something similar in mind. We are recording this webinar, and while we will distribute the recording afterwards to all webinar registrants, we will not be distributing the slides. Without further ado, please welcome Joanne.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Kristen mentioned, I'm Joanne Legler. I'm Senior Director of Learning Partnerships. I'm here with my coworker and friend, Jamie. Jamie's been here a good amount of time and can also answer questions as you have them. So please don't be shy. Go ahead and put your questions into the chat or the Q&A. We'll happily answer those both as we go along, and we'll save some time towards the end of the session as well. So looking forward to sharing some information with you today. Hopefully this will be the information you need to either begin your application for YGELP or go ahead and hit submit as soon as you can. We're excited to learn more about you. So as Kristen mentioned, this is an opportunity to not only hear more about the application, but also to give a brief overview about YGELP. Obviously, this is a great opportunity to learn more about the application. If you feel like you need even a deeper dive into YGELP, I highly recommend going back, finding our YouTube channel, and digging into the information that we have on another webinar, which includes both our faculty director and a few past participants as well. So YGELP is designed for proven business leaders who are in or on their way into the C-level or the C-suite, or at least on the path to that succession. Somebody who's perfect for YGELP would be somebody who's an integral part of the organization's decision-making team, people who are maybe next in line for the most senior levels of leadership. You should have significant experience, a demonstrated career progression, perhaps on an executive committee, or you're the head of a major business unit, heads of functions for an entire organization. These are folks with key responsibilities within the organization for the leadership and direction of the company, and a strong aspiration to be at the top of their organization and their industry, striving to really make a lasting impact. So on average, this will include folks with about 20 years of work experience, maybe a tiny bit less, oftentimes quite a bit more. We also experience folks to be globally representative. That means not only are they coming from areas outside the US, but even for our US-based participants, they have experience in global business, either themselves or perhaps they're managing a global team. Our YGELP piece, or cohort rather, is on the small side, as you'll notice. In total, we aim to bring in about 40 participants for each cohort. That's very deliberate on our part. This size offers both the diversity of experiences and backgrounds that you should be expecting, and intimate enough to provide you with a tight-knit network of peers who will be lifelong friends, no doubt. Feedback we get all the time from our alumni is that they are very much still in touch with their cohort and consider them to be not only friends, but almost their personal board of advisors to help them through some thorny issues. The delivery of YGELP is in person and on campus at Yale SOM. I'll also put the dates here for 2024. So indeed, for Module 1, you will be with us in person and on campus, day in and day out for 2 full weeks between April 28th and May 10th. Sounds like a long time, and it is. You'll come back to us in September for 2 more weeks, and then you'll finally join us for the 3rd and last module in December, which will give you an opportunity to graduate from the program with your peers. In addition, we will host monthly virtual meetings with the faculty director. This is an opportunity to stay connected with your cohort, as well as get some great feedback about, or discussions and conversations about hot topics with our faculty director. We may bring in a speaker, anything that will allow you to ruminate on what's going on professionally and get some feedback from your cohort mates, as well as have an opportunity in a safe space to discuss some thorny issues, again, either that's going on with you or perhaps just kind of generally in the world. The dates here, like I said, are fixed. In-person attendance at all sessions and on all days is required. And again, this is very deliberate on our part. We feel like the experience is only as good as the conversations, the networking, and the opportunities to connect in person. So do plan to be with us all of those days. Our curriculum is pretty unique. As you can see, it's divided into 3 pillars: leadership in business and society, global perspectives, and an executive toolkit. Our mission is to educate leaders for business and society, and that's really woven into the program by elevating your capacity to drive organizational change and weighing all the interests of all of your stakeholders. So for leadership in business and society, you'll be learning about leadership styles, motivations, maybe corporate financial management, corporate governance, sustainability concepts, board management. In the global perspectives pillar, you'll be thinking a lot about deepening your understanding of the global context of business and overcoming the strategic challenges of operating in this very globalized world. So you'll take classes on immigration policy, global economy classes, as well as global macroeconomic trends and opportunities and risks in emerging markets. And then finally, the executive toolkit is maybe what most of you are looking forward to the most. This is where you're really going to sharpen your business acumen, drive profitability, growth in your organization. You're going to take classes related to decision-making, digital transformation, negotiations, stocks and bonds and bills and inflation, restructuring and turnaround situations. And of course, our program is always subject to change as we consider, again, what's going on, what the market is asking us for, while still making sure that you're getting the foundational information that you need, regardless of how the world changes, or maybe even how your career changes from one year to another. Okay, so that's a very brief overview of the YGELP program. Again, I encourage you to go to our website, download our brochure, watch some of our past webinars with past participants and faculty, and really better understand what it means to be in the YGELP program. Is this the right thing for you? Is this the expectation you have about networking with others? And do you have the time to make sure that you'll be here with us again, live and in person for those 3 modules? So if it sounds good to you, and I know that it does, you're probably wondering a little bit about maybe why we have an application and what the components are of an application. We have an application to make sure that we're bringing in the best cohort we possibly can. That's both for your benefit and, of course, for that of our faculty. I mentioned having about 20 years of work experience. We want to make sure that we're bringing together a peer group. It can feel a bit lonely at the top, and perhaps you're in a position where it would be difficult to go to a boss, a board member, with some concerns that you have about your own development, your own organization. And similarly, it can be difficult to lean too heavily on those who report to you. So here you go. Here's a group of your peers where you can be vulnerable, where you can be frank, where you can ask for advice. And so it is important for us to have an application in our process, have a component here where we can best understand what your understanding of the program is and what your goals are and how you'll contribute to the program. So to start off, we do have a pretty simple application form that's going to get you started, just to make sure that we have the right email address for you. Once you fill that out, you'll be sent back over to the actual application itself and start filling that in with some pretty, again, basic information. We'll want to know a little bit about where you work, where you live, how many years of work experience you have, who you report up to, a little bit of financial information about your organization, links to make sure we best understand what your organization is all about, especially if it's new for us. So the application form itself really should take very little time. Things that might take a little bit more time: number one, a resume or a CV. If it's been a minute since you've taken a look at your own CV or your own resume, now's the time to dust it off and take a look and make sure it reflects not only your current work experience, but perhaps it's time to take some bullets off of some of your past experience. So at this point, we'd recommend something around 2 pages, maybe 2 to 3, but something that gives us a sense, again, specifically about your current role and what your specific responsibilities are. So you'll upload that as part of your application. No application is complete without essays, and we do have 3 essay prompts. These are pretty obvious, I think. We're certainly going to want to know who you are, what you're about, why you're considering this program, what your goals might be, and what you uniquely have to provide to your cohort, so that we are, again, bringing together this interesting, dynamic, diverse group of individuals to create this really wonderful cohort. So you'll want to take some time. It can be a little self-reflective to take some time to think about the answers to your essay questions. But again, we want to know that we're all here for the right reasons. You've done your homework and you've been thoughtful about why this is the next step in your process. We do require 1 professional reference. Your recommender should be somebody that you know pretty well. Ideally, it might be somebody who you report up to, perhaps a board member. If you are an entrepreneur or someone else who would rely on a client recommendation, that's fine too. The actual professional reference will get sent from our office to your recommender, so you don't have to worry about doing too much other than to make sure we have the information we need on that person, including a valid email address, and that they are aware that you are applying to the program, what your timeline is to get this letter of reference in, and maybe take some time to remind them about who you are, what you do, what some of your accomplishments and highlights have been, and why you think this is the next best step, so that they can back up all of those things on your behalf. You'll definitely want to make sure that reference gets in as soon as possible after you submit your application. We will absolutely need it in order to make sure we can continue on with evaluating your application for admission. So you may have to nudge that person once in a while and make sure that they get that in. If everything looks good on our end, we're going to go ahead and evaluate your application and possibly invite you to interview with the admissions team. If you are invited to interview, you'll hear from us. It'll encourage you to go ahead and submit a time and a date that works for you based on the calendar. And then you'll meet with the team for about 30 minutes. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better, but it goes both ways. So please do come to your interview with questions that you might have about the program, next steps in the application process, or anything else that might be on your mind about YGELP, or even perhaps about Yale or the Yale School of Management. So it feels like a lot. It definitely is going to take a little bit of time for you to sit down, again, be self-reflective, think about what you're hoping to get out of the program, and then making sure you're following up with your recommender. And if you're invited to interview, we'll look forward to seeing your face on Zoom. So like I said, the application process and timeline is sort of as it is here. There aren't a lot of tricks or tips that I can offer up here. Once the application is submitted, we will go ahead on the back end as a committee and determine whether or not there's enough evidence there to move forward to an interview so that we can learn a little bit more about you. We will then run through a series of interviews for each person is going to get 1 interview, but we'll run through our interviews over a series of weeks. Once we finish doing the interviews, we come back together as a committee to determine who will take a seat in the class or invited to take a seat in the class. And then we will go ahead and notify you of this decision. If indeed you are admitted to YGELP, we'll go ahead and ask you, hey, are you interested in joining us? Obviously, you've got a decision to make too. So if you choose to enroll with us, which of course we hope that you will if you are admitted to the program, you will fill out a short form, and then you'll start to get together the deposit to hold your spot in the class. And then you'll finish the remainder of the payment shortly thereafter. We asked for a $10,000 deposit about 30 days after getting admitted to the program, and then the balance will be due early in 2024. The final deadline for YGELP for the 2024 cohort is February 16th of 2024. That's our real deadline. And the reason for that is because it takes us about 2 months to finalize all final admissions decisions, invite folks to be admitted to the program and enroll. And then it'll take a little bit of time for you to get your act together, make sure that you have delegated responsibilities at home and at work, made travel plans to be here for the very first module, and then of course do what is expected of you on day one, which is some pre-work. So there's a little bit of homework in advance of starting the program, but don't worry, it won't take much time, and hopefully it'll even be a little bit of fun. Certainly, I do encourage you to apply as soon as possible if you've already determined that YGELP is the right program for you. We are at the middle to end of November here. Of course, we'll be going on some pretty lengthy breaks, as most universities do. So we definitely encourage you to apply as soon as you can. On the other hand, if you're hoping to have the downtime of the holiday season to really work on this, maybe work takes a little bit of a back seat and you'll have some time on your own to think about your essays, find a proper recommender, that's fine too. We notify folks at this point out on a rolling and space available basis. So we will fill our cohort as we go. So I certainly, again, do implore you to apply ASAP. As I said, if we do fill the class, we will probably at some point only take applications on a waitlist basis or may stop taking applications altogether. So hopefully that doesn't discourage you. Hopefully that's not a scary thing to hear. The joy of having this under your belt and done before the holidays get into full swing. Trust me, you'll thank me later, and you'll have a wonderful and relaxing holiday break and come back strong in the new year. Okay, so what do we need to actually do to get prepared for the program? So let's say everything works out great for you. The admissions process goes smoothly. I have a wonderful interview with our team and you've made it and you've decided that you're going to join us in April of 2024. So here are some tips that we would offer you to get ready for the program. Number one, consider or perhaps reconsider your goals, because hopefully this is something you thought a lot about in the application process to begin with. So your goals for the program, for yourself professionally, what do you want to get out of this opportunity? Why are you considering doing this to begin with? How are you going to bring this information back to your organization in a meaningful way? How will you share this with your board, with your boss, with those who work with you? Take some time to think about that so that when you come into the program, your goals are clear and in sight. Okay, think about the time away from work. What is your organization going to do without you for 2 weeks at a time, twice in 1 year, and then again for a full week right before the end of the year? How are you going to delegate? What does it mean for you to be away from the office? How will others possibly cope in your absence? How are you going to delegate not only tasks, but decision-making? Your time at YGELP needs to be focused on yourself and here and with our faculty and with those others in your cohort. So what will you need to do to prepare yourself, prepare your team for being away for 2 weeks? Similarly, what about time away from home? What are you responsible for there, both physically in your home and for those that love you and vice versa? How are you and your family going to fill that gap? What are the expectations you want to set with your loved ones to make sure that there's no frustration or resentment? What big family events can you anticipate now that might have to carry on without you? Or perhaps you realize there's something so huge that you couldn't possibly miss it. And perhaps this year's cohort isn't the right one for you. We'll be here in 2025 and beyond. So if this year doesn't work out for you, that's okay. Maybe another year might be better for you. So definitely go home, check in with your partner, make sure that you're not going to miss a big wedding or a graduation or something like that, and that the timing truly works both at work and at home. Some books will have major travel considerations. The G in global, as I've said, is no joke. We've got folks coming all the way from across the world, both hemispheres, all 4 hemispheres. So do make sure that the travel consideration is something that you've thought seriously about. What does it mean to be here for 2 weeks at a time in the US, particularly if you're from outside the US? Are there visa considerations? Are there flight considerations? What is the cost going to look like? How is that going to factor into your decision in addition to the tuition for the program. So something to think about there, both in terms of timing and in terms of cost. And then finally, financing YGELP. Oftentimes people will get super excited about the program and say, great, how am I going to pay for this? And the answer is, I don't know the answer to that. You'll have to work that out either on your own if you're considering self-financing to make sure that you're able to meet our payment deadlines. If this is going to be through work, what are you obligated to do in exchange for this being covered by folks at work? Is this an HR consideration? Is this a managerial consideration? What do you need to do now to get that ball rolling so that the payment piece of things isn't going to be the thing that either holds you up or prevents you from actually being here? I've definitely seen that in other programs that I've worked in. Things just kind of fall apart once the applicant actually gets admitted to the program, which maybe folks weren't thinking is going to happen. And then it does. So we definitely want you to be prepared to have maybe some tough conversations and think about what this could mean for you. Don't forget to factor in those costs related to travel, extra hotel nights, if that's going to be something that you want to use to extend your trip on either end. And definitely let us know if we can help answer any questions there. I do want to point out that we don't unfortunately have any specific scholarships or discounts for YGELP, but for those that are considering using their military benefits, do get in touch with us as soon as possible so we can clarify specifically what we need from you. For those of you that are either military veterans or active duty, firstly, thank you for your service, but secondly, you know that this isn't a thing that happens quickly. So give yourself some time to pull that information and that paperwork together, and we're here to help with that. Okay, so now what do I do next? Hopefully this has gotten you to think about your goals, think about your future. It has inspired you either to apply if you haven't begun the process already, or hit that submit button if you are sure that this is the right program for you and you've already started to craft your application. So for those of you that haven't quite gotten there yet, again, hopefully this is exciting and inspiring. Go ahead and download that YGELP brochure. Not only will that ensure that you have a record in our system, which can help ensure that you're getting the most up-to-date information related to the program and the application process, but it'll give you some great information about the program that is a little separate from what's available here or on our website. Open an application. This obligates you to nothing. Go ahead, check it out, see what we're asking for, see what you need to get familiar with within your own self and your own thought process. This costs nothing anyway, but it really costs nothing to just open the application and start sort of poking around to see what it is that you've got to get together for yourself so that you don't open it, expect to finish it in one setting and start to feel overwhelmed. Take it some pieces at a time. Opening the application is step one. Do pencil in the dates for the 2024 modules. I did put them up here on the last or second to last slide. In any case, no matter how far back it was, number one, we're reporting this. And number two, of course, the dates are in the application and on our website. So in the enormous gesture of optimism, go ahead and pencil those in on your calendar now so that you can A, see if there are any conflicts, or B, make sure those dates are held just for you to focus in on this program for the next 8 months, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 1 week. We talked about having a letter of reference. This is not the kind of thing you want to spring on somebody. So perhaps what you'll want to do first is set up some time to speak with your recommender. Cannot emphasize this enough. No one wants to get surprised and then find out they have to do something as important as a recommendation for a program like YGELP, and they only have a couple of days to do it. So I would say set up some time with your recommender. I promise you this is not bribery. Take them for a cup of coffee, take them for lunch, explain what YGELP is to the best of your ability, explain why you need their help to assist in getting you to this goal. And it's also a great time to remind them of who you are, what you've done, and what some of your accomplishments may be. Maybe pull out that last evaluation and get their support. The important question to ask is not, will you please do this for me, but will you be able to do it and produce a positive letter of recommendation? Find a way to give the person a gentle out, particularly if they're quite busy, if this isn't a thing that might end up on their radar screen as a priority, and make sure that they have the time and the information and the content to provide us with that perspective on your candidacy for this program. They should know you're doing it, they should know what you want to get out of it, and hopefully they're supportive of your endeavor. I mentioned this a couple of times, but please go back to our YouTube channel and watch this wonderful open house webinar that Kristen moderated with Professor Jeff Sonnenfeld, who is our faculty director, and 3 alumni of YGELP. The way that Professor Sonnenfeld and Kristen managed the group, the things that they talked about, you can tell how much they agreed with one another about what they got out of the program, even as it was different for them individually, the passion that they have for the program, and you can tell why Professor Sonnenfeld is our faculty director for this program. So I can't encourage you enough to take an hour out of your day at some point and check that out. I've mentioned the YGELP website. Please note we actually have a couple of different websites or pages here. Definitely check out the main YGELP website. We have testimonials there and on our community page, as well as the nitty-gritty of the program. Separately, we have an application website that'll help break things down even further for you. So check out both of those sites and make sure you've got this all up here. Be aware of that last deadline. I'll say it again. It's February 16th, 2024. That's the day by which you'll want to hit submit. Obviously, we encourage you to do so much sooner than that. Again, in large part, so that you have plenty of time to get yourself ready to go in April. The later you apply, the later you find out if you got in, and if so, the less amount of time you have to prepare. So definitely encourage you to be aware of those deadlines and try not to fall into the trap of the adrenaline rush that comes with applying at the last second. I am here to help. Kristen's here to help. Jamie's here to help. We have a wonderful staff here of YGELP experts within executive education. There's no question that's too small or that we're afraid to answer. So please feel free to contact us, somexec.info@yale.edu if you are an applicant or have applied. You might find yourself interacting instead with our admissions inbox, but don't worry, we all work right down the hall from one another. We're in touch constantly. And we're happy to answer questions in any of our various inboxes to the executive education team. So we go into Q&A as you're thinking about any of those questions that you might want to put in the chat or in the Q&A here. I would love, as you're thinking about it and typing, to give you a couple of final pieces of advice here. I have one, I know Jamie has one, and then we'll let Kristen finish up. So, or Kristen, would you like to go first? Up to you.
Keep going, Joanne, you're on a roll.
Okay, I guess I am on a roll. So my advice is about the recommendation. Again, I've already kind of harped on this a little bit, but you definitely want to take some time to explain your motivation for the program. If this includes an assist for financing, you'll definitely want to make that argument as well. But also might mean that you've done your homework in terms of either your VA benefits. Perhaps you've met with somebody from HR to understand your organizational benefits. So make your case on that point as well. Again, this shouldn't take you too long, but you're not going to do yourself any favors or endear yourself to anyone if you ask for something and then you've got a really unrealistic or short deadline for that. So make people want to help you and make them feel positive about this experience for you. Perhaps you do that even before you open up the application to make sure that everybody's on the same page there. So that's always my best piece of advice. You can tell I'm talking about it in 2 different contexts here. So this is something that I've seen folks struggle with over and over again in my many years in admissions. And one of the easiest things you can actually do before it gets really unmanageable or difficult. Kristen, what about you? How would you advise folks about YGELP?
One common way that we have had past participants kind of assess if the program was a good fit or not for them was by looking at our past participant spotlights that we posted on our blog. So I'm going to drop that link into the chat. So there's one comes to mind. You by all means explore the website, explore their profiles, see if you feel like can get a sense of like their motivations, and if their motivations align with yours. That's one great way to learn more about who enrolls in this program and if that could be you in this next cohort.
Well said. What about you, Jamie? What do you think?
I would say to definitely take a look at the application before you submit. Have an idea of what the essay questions are so that you can answer them thoughtfully.
Thanks, Jamie. Kristen, before you start with our Q&A, I just have to say hello to my very good friend Maureen, who is on our webinar today. Maureen and I used to work together back in the very early 2000s, in my first job after grad school, and I'm getting emotional just thinking about her being interested in this program. But you just never know where life will take you. So, you know, every time I think about where I was, and I'm so lucky to work here at the School of Management and be part of this process. Every person along the way of that journey makes a huge difference. So Maureen, I love you. I miss you. I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm glad everybody's here, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Kristen, if you want to lob some at me, or I can take a look in the chat.
Maria had a great one. Jamie answered this in the chat, but I wanted to hear your views as well.
Sure.
So one of the questions that she had was about if the recommender if we wanted the recommender to have certain qualifications in order to be qualified to be a recommender for a YGELP applicant.
That's a really great question. I'm sure hopefully Jamie would answer this the same way, but the answer is sort of, you know, we definitely want to hear from somebody, preferably, frankly, from your professional life, somebody who can comment on your work experience, somebody who's going to maybe support you through this program, somebody who would endorse you for this program and also agrees with you that it's the next right step for you. Again, depending on where you are organizationally, you may not have a boss, or you may not have somebody who you can easily call a boss, or maybe that person's just not the right fit. I certainly wouldn't ask somebody who reports up to you. Of course, that gets us into sticky situations about, you know, sort of a quid pro quo or something else that might feel a little uncomfortable for that person. So qualifications, not necessarily. Relationship really is the way that I would think about it. You definitely want somebody who's going to, like I said, endorse you, feels positively about you, supports you for this program, and then also has enough to say about you that it's not one word answer. So that's why I always say, do you have time to write me a positive letter of reference? And that's sort of, like I said, the key to making sure that you're giving somebody an out in case this is not the right person. So again, the list of people who could do this for you is really endless in some ways. I've seen some from, if you're strong in volunteer work, if you are a board member of an organization, somebody who at least understands your work, that's a great choice too. So I wouldn't say to sweat it too much, but think about it in the context of your relationships rather than their qualifications.
Great. Marina, you're on a roll. She's asking another great one. What about if there are any scholarships, grants, or financial aid to apply to?
That's a great question. Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is no. This is one of the programs that we offer that doesn't have any discounts, and the price tag is hefty, and we certainly appreciate and we know that. One of the things I would encourage you to think about, in addition to checking in with your organization to see if there are any opportunities to be supported financially there, is also to, if you are in the market for a program and you're doing homework across other programs as well, what are you getting for the price tag? So apples and oranges here. Some schools, everything's included. Some programs, it won't include maybe your hotel costs, and that's on you. Ours is pretty all-inclusive. There's not too much we leave out there. We'll make sure that you're well fed. We'll make sure you have somewhere lovely to put your head down at night, and all the materials that you need for this program. The things you'll have to think about are the extra costs in addition to the tuition of travel for folks who are coming from New York or down the street here in Connecticut. That's going to be really different than somebody who may be coming from Asia or Africa. So again, just considerations here. But for this program, unfortunately, we don't offer anything that amounts to a discount or a scholarship. Anything else? Looks like we've got some other quick questions. Oh, Maureen asked about tuition and room and board, and yeah, that covers the cost of the hotels for the times that you're with us. Again, if you stay on either end, you'll want to factor that cost in. And then there are some evenings where dinner is on your own. The bright spot there is that New Haven is a foodie scene, and whatever you're into in terms of food, there's something here for you. It's also a great opportunity to chill out with your classmates and have some downtime in the evenings. But we also have some really fun evening activities planned for you as well.
Jacob asked a great question in the chat, but I see Jamie is, I feel like I'm looking at her typing face. So you tell me, Jamie, are you responding in the chat, or would you like to speak to it?
I was, but I can speak to it. So the question was, what forms of payment do we accept? And we do accept check, wire, and credit card payments. And it can be a combination of the three.
Next on the list, how else can I help?
Any more questions?
I see a good one here about somebody having only 7 years of work experience. Did anybody catch that one yet? I'm happy to address that.
Yeah,
Well-
I've responded, but feel free to add anything in that you want.
Yeah, listen, you probably said it better than I will. But yeah, the gist is that we're looking for senior leadership folks with about 20 years of experience. And that doesn't take away from your experience at having your own company or being what would be considered a CEO. For us, really, that means that we're working with folks who have the number of years of work experience where they've probably seen it all at this point and are either moving into positions, what might be their final position in their professional life, or maybe it already is, and they're just looking to sort of treat those skills and craft that network. So 7 years is probably going to be a tough one for us. You're welcome to apply. Anything is possible, but we are looking for somebody with closer to 20.
Catherine asked another question at I'm 34 years old. Is this too early? We're getting a lot of great questions on like your particular circumstances. And I know that we all have the availability to have one-on-one conversations to discuss your background and your experience specifically. It would help us to understand your motivations and what your goals are. So your particular situation, it may not be easy to quantify or have an alignment with your age or your years of experience. So having a one-on-one conversation with us is sometimes the best route to assess if you're a good fit for this program and if if you want to pursue it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better. I think, again, it's less about the number of years of work and maybe what age that you are. I'm really happy, and thank you, Jamie, for putting the email in here. We're happy to chat with you. I'm happy to chat with you. We can do Zoom, we can do a quick chat, we can do a call. And don't be afraid to do that. It's a great place to start. It's great to get to start relationships even early on in the process. So I'm happy to chat with folks one-on-one. Obviously these webinars are terrific, but everybody's got their own unique experience. So I promise I'm a pretty nice person and not scary. And really, this is just an opportunity. If this isn't the right program for you, we may have something else that's a great fit for you here at Yale within executive education. We've got some wonderful open enrollment programs, and here I would point out our Women on Boards program. So if that's probably figure out what that is, that sounds cool to you, great. If you are a little earlier in your career, do you want to start with something like our Women's Leadership Program or our upcoming Elevated Leadership Program? Are you in the creative space? Then you might want to consider our Business Perspectives for Creative Leaders program. If you would love to do this program, but you don't have the capacity to be here in person, check out our digital programs. Those are asynchronous, except for Business Perspectives for Creative Leaders is a live online program, which is a really cool way to think about doing it. So I feel like we've got something for everybody, and maybe YGELP sounds great, but you are a little bit pre-YGELP. There are other programs, and I'd be happy to counsel you about those options as well. So as you're looking at YGELP, take a look at our portfolio of other programs. There may be something else really great out there that's a better fit for you or a better fit now.
Mm-hmm. Jacob asked 3 great questions in one submission, which kudos to you, Jacob, already overachieving. So I'm going to throw them 1-to-1 or 1-by-1 over you, Joanne, so you can provide some feedback. Is there any industry of focus to look at for consideration of the cohort selection?
Question. The answer is absolutely not. I think is so great about YGELP and many of our programs here in person is the diversity of backgrounds, and that includes backgrounds, experiences, industries, gender expression, geography. It just couldn't be more important to us that we are bringing in the most interesting and diverse cohort that we possibly can. So we've had military leaders, we have had nonprofit leaders, we have had university leaders. We've had, again, what we probably think is sort of your standard business school exec ed program leadership in banks or consulting firms or manufacturing firms. But you just never know. And all of that leads me to say that we're only going to be as good of a cohort as we are diverse. And so it's absolutely our aim and our goal to provide you with that experience so that you can lead each session that you're in and then leave the program knowing that there's no right way to do things and having some creative solutions to the problems you're experiencing at work because somebody from a completely different country, industry, whatever it is, offered a suggestion that you would never have thought of in 1,000 years. So no, we're really excited to bring in anyone and everyone who does whatever it is that they do for a living that can only make us a better cohort.
And you are also an all-star because you answered in that Jacob's second question is, do you all strive to keep the cohort diverse, which is a resounding yes. So on to the third question, Jacob, is there anything that makes a candidate stand out?
Yeah, for sure. And you can stand out for the right way or the wrong way. So just stand out in a positive way. Again, that industry and that diversity of experience is really meaningful to us. Even if you think you're in an industry that's, I don't know, sort of standard or what you would think would be sort of expected, what you do within your industry or your organization may be quite unique. So that's something that you can do is say, hey, I know I work at this organization that everybody's heard of and you think we all do the same thing, but my role here is to do this thing, and that makes me really unique. I'm only one of 2 people who does this. So that in and of itself can be really interesting. Again, I want to sort of emphasize that leadership piece. This is a program for leaders, for senior leaders. So we're wanting to make sure that anybody who comes into the program has that level of experience where they're managing other people, organizations, or have done that in the past. Perhaps you're in a role right now in a small organization where that's just not possible and it wasn't what you were hired for. But we are kind of going back into your work history to see if that exists somewhere else as well. But I can't emphasize enough too, although I'm emphasizing everything. What are your goals for the program? What do you want to do while you're here? We want to make sure we're bringing in folks who get what this program is about. They understand what the expectations are. They're not taking calls. They're not leaving sessions, that they're in it and truly focused on their time here. That's a great experience for them. And of course, it makes a better experience for your cohort mates as well. So when I'm reading an application, Jamie and I are looking and meeting in a committee. Part of the question is, do they get it? Do they understand what we're doing here in YGELP? And do they have something to contribute? And do they understand what we have to offer here as it relates to what their goals are? So everything is important. It really is. And I think the things that are tough for us to swallow, or when folks don't read the essay prompts, you know, when it's clear they just didn't take any time at all to be reflective, that's a bummer, to say the least. So, you know, take the time that it takes. It's a great proxy for making sure you have the time to do the program.
Thank you, Joanne. That's it for right now.
Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today, to allow us to tell you more about the program, to encourage you on around the application. And I wish you the best of luck if you choose our program and choose to apply. So, and thank you to Jamie and Kristen for hosting and being the co-host.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you all for your wonderful time today and for your thoughtful questions. And with that, we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you.